Yeah, that's when people see this again, they're gonna be like, oh man, they clap for their pastor. It's great. Anyway, so anyway, if you've been here for a number of months, you'll know that we just wrapped up Ephesians, but we actually started the church going through the Gospel of John. And it's my favorite gospel, and it's amazing. I love it. I think that every church should go through it, and I think every church should take 10 years to go through it. But we're not going to take 10 years. We're only 6 chapters in. So we took a pause last year to go into Ephesians, but we're going to re-engage now back into the Gospel of John. And what we titled this sermon series is called Seeing Jesus, because what we ultimately want the most clarity on is, who is this person that we're calling people to follow? Who is this person that we are supposed to follow? So seeing Jesus as helping us see him as he is, not seeing him as how we would hope him to be, not seeing him as culture depicts him to be, not seeing him as your favorite TikToker on Instagram, your TikToker theologian may. This is not even as Caesar sees him. This is how the scriptures depict him. And so let me just invite you to this. The Gospels are not just for unbelievers. The gospel is for believers, because we never graduate from needing the truth and beauty of Jesus Christ. We need the gospel every day. But the gospel is quite beautiful for those who do not know Jesus. And there are empty seats here today, and there are empty seats every week. And the reality is that there is a person that should be sitting in those seats. These are people who do not. We live in a city that have thousands and thousands of people. We are a growing city. We don't just want to see Jesus. We want the lost to see Jesus. So as we re-engage back into this series, I'm going to ask you, not as your pastor, but as a brother in the faith, and say, hey, don't you want people to see Jesus? Yes? Are you all awake? Do you want people to see Jesus? Yes. So invite them. Show them Jesus, not just by bringing them on Sundays, but by showing them Jesus through your own life as well. Tell them about Jesus. If you do not tell them, who will? Who will? Anyway, so we're going to go back into John this morning. And what we're going to talk about this morning is about Jesus and the storms of life. As I was prepping for this sermon, this painting came to mind. It'll be on the screen. Could you, hey buddy, could you put it on the screen? Oh, that's okay. If you go to, this is so funny. There is. If you go, I'll do it. This is gonna be so great. People are gonna be wondering why people are going back and forth. Yeah, Jade is supposed to. Yep. This painting. Okay. Wow, this is going great, guys. It was a great time to go back in John. So this is a painting. This is a Rembrandt painting. It's called "Storm in the Sea of Galilee," which is exactly what happens in the passage that we're going to be in this morning. And these are all the disciples with Jesus being in the boat. And I just want to ask you for a moment, as before we engage in the text, where would you find yourself in this boat? Are you the person who is rowing for dear life? They're like, the funny thing is, there's only one guy in the very back rowing. It's like, yeah, this one, I was like, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to get us on track. I don't need anybody else. I'm the 12th man, and this is it. I can do this. Or maybe you're the person in the front being slammed by the waters, but you're just holding on to dear life. Maybe you're the guy up on the top trying to fix the sail, which is absolutely dumb, because in a storm, you don't put a sail up, but he is. So maybe you're that person. You can't really tell here, but if you look on the bottom, my very favorite is this one guy looking over the edge of the boat, and his face is like this. Yeah, that would probably be me. Puking, probably. That's what I would like. We are going to die. I am looking at the waves, and you can't really see here, and I really wish I could zoom it in, but in the very middle, there's a guy who's hiding on the bottom of the boat, that's the safest place, right? Of course. You're like, I'm not going to face the storm. I'm going to hide. Or maybe you're actually like me. I wouldn't be on the boat, because that's dumb. This is why you don't go on boats, because you can die. Anyway, regardless of whether you are who you are on the boat, here's the reality. Every single person, Christian or not, will face storms in their life. It's a given. We all do it. And here's the thing. Some of us can plan for it. Okay? How do I know? Because we live in Florida. We all plan for storms. We all know it. Summer's coming. What time does a storm come? Probably 1 to 3 p.m. So you know it's going to happen. You're not going to try to drive during that time, or if you are, you know you have an umbrella all the time. You have a raincoat just in case, because you know it rains, it storms. You know I can prepare for it, but not everything in life, not every storm in life is like a Florida thunderstorm. There are storms that come that you don't see coming. There are storms in your life that you thought everything, the clouds were gone, the sun was out, and you're like, man, today's going to be a great day. And then you get a phone call, and then you get a text, and then you get a diagnosis, and you get a this, and you get a that, and you get another, and all of a sudden, everything's dark. Everything's stormy. The winds pick up, and you're like, how did I end up in the middle of this? What do you do with those storms? What do you do in those storms that you don't see coming? What do you do with the storms that are too great for you to walk through? What do you do with them? Because it happens. It only takes one moment for your whole life to be flipped upside down. What do you do? What do you do? Well, the disciples are facing that exact reality. They're facing a storm, and they have no idea what to do. And so as we engage back in John chapter 6, this section of John is one of the signs of John. In the Gospel of John, he has about 7 or 8 signs. And the whole point of a sign, like a signpost, is that it's supposed to direct you to something, but it's supposed to tell you something, reveal something to you. And so the disciples are in the storm, and Jesus is about to reveal something to them about himself that should fundamentally change how they face the storms of life. And that's what's being offered to us this morning. Jesus is not saying that storms don't happen. He's saying storms will happen, but you need to know something about me. If you're a follower of Jesus, if you follow me, you're a disciple of me, you need to know there's something true about who I am that should change how you face the storms of life. Let's turn to our text this morning, John chapter 6. And we'll just read the first few verses again, 16 to the beginning of 19. Jesus says this, John writes this: when evening came, his disciples, Jesus' disciples, went down to the lake, where they got into a boat and set off across the lake for Capernaum. By now it was dark, and Jesus had not yet joined them. Verse 18, a strong wind was blowing, and the waters grew rough. And when they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus approaching the boat. So we'll stop here and unpack this for a moment. So you see, John says the disciples here are going on a little trip, a little a fishing expedition, if you will. And it says that they went without Jesus, which always in the Christian life is a dumb thing to do. Don't go. If you're a follower of Jesus, it implies that you need what? Jesus. But that's actually not John's point. Because if you read the parallel accounts in Matthew and Mark, so Matthew 14 and Mark 6, there's these parallel accounts that talk about this exact event. And what Matthew and Mark tell us is that actually the reason why they've gone ahead without Jesus is because Jesus told them, hey, go on ahead and I'll meet you in Capernaum. Go on ahead without me. I'll catch up. And we don't exactly know why it is, but we can make a conjecture here, because right before this scene, Jesus has just fed over 15,000 people with 5 pieces of bread and 2 small fish. The math ain't math in there, right? Like 5, 2, 15,000. I wish that was what my bank account could be like. You know what I'm saying? Deposit 5, 15, that's amazing. But that doesn't happen. But Jesus did it. And what's interesting in the Gospel of John, just the verse before in 15, it says that they wanted to make Jesus king. After this, they were like, oh my gosh, you should be the guy in charge. You can make fish and bread multiply. We're going to follow you. And so Jesus rejects it. He goes, no, stop it. I'm not here to be your celebrity. I'm not here to be your earthly king. I'm here to do far more than you can ask or imagine. But just like in our day when you have a celebrity, so you have a celebrity, I don't know, Pitbull. I don't know. Whatever, Brad Pitt, right? You get Brad Pitt going, and every time you have a celebrity, what does a celebrity always have around them? A posse. And the posse gets in wherever the celebrity goes, and they feel really important. They're not as attractive, they're not as talented. They just have the benefit of knowing Brad Pitt. And in the very same case, these 12 young Jewish boys are not impressive. Not at all, but they follow the guy who made 15,000 pieces of bread and 15,000 fish. Like, they could feel self-important. So Jesus says, listen, before you get a big head, get out of here. Go on ahead. You're not supposed to be a celebrity. I'm not supposed to be a celebrity. Just go on ahead without me, and I'll meet you there. Now, these guys, they're fishermen. A lot of them are fishermen in this boat. So they wouldn't have thought twice about it. They're like, I've done this before. I can cross the Sea of Galilee with my eyes blinded, like blindfolded. I can do this just fine. And so they've gone through the Sea of Galilee plenty of times. They clearly have never seen a horror movie. That's not what you do. You do not go out in the dark, but this is what they do. They go in the ship in the dark. Now, here's what's interesting to me. They're going on this trip out of obedience to Jesus. Okay? Because this detail will make sense in a moment. And they're rowing and rowing gently down the sea, right? And suddenly, a storm whips up. They couldn't have seen it coming because it's dark. They don't know. Maybe they felt a slight breeze and go, wow, this is so nice. Why don't we do this more often? And then suddenly the waves begin to whip up. See, notice, it's the disciples that are in the storm. Now, you might be thinking, well, hold on. I thought storms happen to bad people. I thought storms happen when I disobey Jesus. I thought that's why we obey him, so our life doesn't fall apart, so that things can go well, so that when my life does feel like I'm sinking, when I'm obedient, then I'll be fine. But it's the disciples, out of obedience to Jesus, that are in the storm. That's tough. So you're telling me that even when I follow the man upstairs, my life can still feel like it's sinking? Yes. And this is no little storm. See, storms in the Sea of Galilee are dangerous and they're violent. If you do a little background context, what you'll see is that that storm systems in the Sea of Galilee are quite common. And when a storm comes, it can whip up gale force winds, which means that these winds can be like a category 1, 40 miles per hour winds. Okay, that's pretty strong. And what happens is as it's whipping the waves, it begins to make them large. And so you have 40-mile-per-hour winds hitting you, and you have 10 to 12-foot waves just slapping against the boat. This is not a tough boat. This is a fishing boat, a travel boat. It's actually not meant to withstand the storms of life, but that's all they're doing. And what's your first instinct in the middle of a storm? Row, baby, row, right? I got to get out of this. I got to row myself out. And Jesus is nowhere to be found, right? They're like, well, we're without Jesus. Guys, we got to go. All 12 of us got to row. We got to row. We got to row. We have to rely on ourselves. And what's interesting is John says that they row for 3 to 4 miles, which is not an impressive thing because that's only halfway through. But when you read Matthew, it shows that they were rowing for 6 to 8 hours. So they rowed for 6 to 8 hours and only made it barely halfway through. They're exhausted. They're barely making progress. It's dark. The waves are overwhelming. They're rowing for dear life. Jesus seems to be nowhere around them. They've met their match. They're hopeless. And it doesn't matter that some of them are professional fishermen. It doesn't matter that they have strength and vigor and youth on their side. There is a storm before them that is too great for them to get through. And what John wants you to know this morning is that you will face storms in this life that are greater than you. You will. You will face storms that will make you feel so absolutely helpless. You will have things happen with your children and go, I don't know what else to do. You'll have moments in your marriage where you're wondering, will this marriage make it? You'll have moments in your career where you're like, this is nowhere where I want it to be. And maybe, and this is the worst one, when everything externally feels amazing, but internally you're so depressed and you're so anxious and you don't even know why. You have a storm brewing in your heart and you're like, I don't know how to get out of this. I'm sinking and I'm holding on for dear life. I can imagine that some of you felt that way. And you don't know what else to do. And the thing is, none of us wake up in the morning hoping for that. Well, none of us expect a storm to happen. I mean, we wake up in the morning, right? And we're thinking, today is going to be a great day. And then you get a call and you get a text and something happens and suddenly everything falls apart. And in those moments, you will be tempted, whether you're a Christian or not, in the darkest, stormiest parts of your life, you will be tempted to rely on yourself. You'll be tempted to say, I got to row, and I need a row, and I need a row because if I don't row, I won't make it. If I don't row, no one will row for me. I got to do it. It doesn't matter that I'm calloused. It doesn't matter that I'm starving. It doesn't matter that I'm exhausted. If I don't row, I won't survive. There's a temptation in our day, in the storms of our life, to have a heavy degree of self-reliance, and our culture breeds that in us. We talk about self-affirmation and manifesting. We say things like, you have everything you need inside of yourself. I have fat. That's all. That's me. I don't have much beyond that point. I don't have a lot of strength. I don't have a lot of vigor. I don't have a lot of fortitude. There's just some things in my life I cannot muster up. So what do? You drown. If you depend on yourself, you will drown. One way or another, either you're going to be on the ship just letting the waves slap you up and you're just begging, just take me now, or you'll be capsized and you're holding on to the edge of the ship just praying that you can hold on just a little bit longer. It's always temporary because you are not as strong and as formidable as you'd like to believe, and the storms of our lives expose that. Now, the disciples are very well aware of this. I mean, if you've been rowing for 6 to 8 hours, you're exhausted. And it's at this very moment of the disciples' weakness and inability that the story takes a turn. Look what it says here in verse 19. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on the water, and they were frightened. But he said to them, it is I. Do not be afraid. You know what's never helped me not be afraid? When someone tells me, do not be afraid, as if that was a novel thought. Like, oh yeah, I don't know why I didn't try that before. Now, I'm not making fun of Jesus. I'm just simply pointing out that it's silly, Jesus, and it's okay that you say silly things, but it's not silly because Jesus wants to reveal something about himself that would lead him to say something like this. Hey, I know the storms are bad, but don't be afraid. I'm here. What? How could that make me feel better? You see, it is at the highest point of the storm, and it's the darkest point of the night where Jesus comes to his disciples. You're like, well, how do you know that's not in the text? Well, it's the highest point because they've been exhausted. It's halfway through the storm. But when you read Matthew, it says that Jesus came to them right before dawn. Do you know what the darkest time of night is? It's right before dawn. It's right before the light breaks in. And Jesus comes to them right before dawn as if to say, he is the light that breaks through. Now, I can imagine the thoughts of the disciples in that moment. What took you so long? It's been hours. For the parents in the room who've forgotten to pick up your kids, and your kids were like, where were you? They thought they thought I was orphaned. And it's like, kid, I was 20 minutes late. Take it easy. But it's been hours. It's been hours. Jesus, where in the world were you? Couldn't have come. Okay, maybe we needed a little exercise. But 6 hours, Jesus? Have you been there before? Have you been there in the storms of life and wondering, Jesus, when are you going to show up? Where are you? And what Jesus wanted them to know in that moment that could only be shown to them through the storm was that regardless of how intense the storm was and regardless of how dark the night was, Jesus saw them and that Jesus would come to them. You see, they could not see Jesus because it was dark. They could not see Jesus because their eyes were fixed on the storm. So they had zero clue that he was even coming towards them. But the text says that that when they finally did see him, they saw him coming. It wasn't that because they saw him, he started coming. He was already on the way. But they had no idea of it. You see, Jesus always sees us in our struggles. He will always see you in your storm, but he will always draw near to you. It's why Hebrews 13:5 says, Jesus, I will never leave you nor forsake you. This is what Jesus says. How comforting, right? If someone says that to you, I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you, you're like, oh, that's so sweet. You would think that the disciples would be like, Jesus, it's you. And the text says they were frightened. What? They were frightened, not at the storm. They were frightened at the sight of Jesus. Now, why would they respond like this? Now, let's listen to a little bit of a holy imagination, okay? I'm not saying this is right. I'm just saying, imagine this is like The Chosen, all right? Anyway, it's not accurate, but we'll see. Jesus, it says, is walking on the water, okay? He's walking on the water. How high of the waves did I say they would be? 10 to 12 feet. Now, if Jesus is walking on the water, homeboy is like a buoy. He's not like he is, I can't even describe it. Like he's just like, it's like, he's like surfing on the waves. I'd be a little freaked out too. I'd be like, what is going on? But have you ever seen someone walk on water? No, I've seen a lizard. That's a special lizard that kind of like, but that's a lizard. Jesus is walking to them on the water. Now, do you know how powerful water is? Have you been to a beach? You've been to the ocean? And like you're just like knee deep and just the water kind of slaps and you're like, oh, wow, I got some weak knees, right? Like now imagine 10 to 12 foot storm. You're knocked out. You're bobbing for air. You're not walking on water until 10 to 12 feet. You're not. And yet Jesus is walking through it. And what's interesting is that he's walking with no resistance. The word that's used for walking is the same word used for strolling. It says that Jesus is strolling on the water. Jesus is strolling through a storm. Jesus is strolling through 10 to 12 feet waves. This is not an ordinary man. Because who is this man who can walk on water and be unstopped by the storms? Who can it be? See, these 12 Jewish boys were good Jewish boys, so they would have remembered the Old Testament scriptures. They're like, I remember Moses walking through the waters. I actually remember in Job where it says that only God, only Yahweh can tread on the waves of the sea. Who is this man? Could it be that Jesus is far more than we thought he was? And then Jesus comes to them, and they're cowering in fear. So I almost kind of imagine him kind of peering over the edge and being like, hey, fellas, it is I. Do not be afraid. Now, what's interesting about this is that in the Greek, the way it would kind of be formatted, when he says, it is I, what he's really saying is, I am. Do not be afraid. The last time we heard the words, I am, would have been in Exodus chapter 3 when Yahweh revealed himself to Moses in the burning bush. And when Moses goes, who, who are you? And he goes, I am who I am. That I am God. I am the creator of all things. I am the one that cannot be held by. I am God who cannot be held by any human category. I am more than you can imagine. I am more than you can understand. I am infinite. I am so close to you like a fiery bush, yet I am so transcendent that I'm above the skies and the heavens. This is who I am. And then Jesus says to the guys in the boat, it is I am. Okay, guys. Jesus is saying in that moment, I am God and I have shown up. That in the storms of your life, that in the breaking points of your existence, when you feel like the oar is not enough and you feel like the boat is breaking, when you are submerged in water, when you are capsized, when the storm is too intense for you, I am here. And I am greater than this storm that you're fearful of. I am greater because why? I'm the one who created the seas. I'm the one who created the waters. In fact, what Proverbs says this, that God gave the sea its boundary so the waters would not overstep his command. How crazy that is? Jesus is saying, I can walk on water because I made this. This water cannot overtake you unless I let it, and I won't because I am your God. I am your Savior. I am your deliverer. I will deliver you through this. Thank you. In essence, Jesus was telling them, you don't have to be afraid because I'm greater than this storm. Now notice, Jesus didn't say, take heart because the storm isn't that bad. He doesn't say, it's just shallow water. No, it's not. He doesn't say, you're not that far from shore, you'll make it. He says, take heart because I am here. It's not that he made the storm smaller. He just needed them to know that he was bigger. See, what I want to offer you this morning, and so I told you, we're not even done yet. I got time. Let's go. You need to fear Jesus more than you fear your storms. You need to have a bigger view of God than you have over the things that bring you the most fear and anxiety in your life. Because sometimes we are so transfixed on the storms of our lives, of the shaky relationships and the broken home. I'm not saying those things aren't bad. And again, I'm not saying that they're not painful. I'm not saying you're not going to get wet. This is Splash Mountain, baby. You're going to get wet. What I'm saying is what you need to know in those moments is not that the storm isn't there, but that Jesus is greater than your storm. He just is. He's greater than all of it, and not just one, but all of them. And what you need to remember is this, and I know this happens, that when storms happen, we think the storms are happening because Jesus is gone. That the storms only happen when he's absent. And what the text is telling us this morning, church, is he's saying that the storms can happen whether he's there or not. That's irrelevant. Storms can happen whether he's there or not. But that you need to know that he has overcome the storms. This is who he is. You see, some of us long for peace or think that we can only have peace if there are no storms in our life. And that's just not the case. Because if your peace is contingent on your circumstances, you'll never have peace. But if your peace is contingent and tied to the person and magnitude of the glory of Jesus Christ, you can have peace through any storm. You've got to see and trust that Jesus is bigger. Now, this would be a great place to end the story. But he doesn't. Look how he finishes it. Verse 21. It says this, then, so they hear this, it is I, don't be afraid. Then they were willing to take him into the boat. And immediately the boat reached the shore where they were heading. Interesting. Now that word for willing to take him is not they were like, I guess we'll take you. No, when they saw Jesus treading on water, when they heard that he was the great I am, When it says they were willing, it means that they were eager. They were like, get in. If that's true, Jesus, get on the boat. Because we can't do it anymore. We're exhausted. We don't have it in us. We need you. If you are truly the Lord over this right now, if you are truly who you say you are, then I need you to get in this boat. Because if you don't get in this boat, we ain't going to make it. We're not going to make it the remaining 2-3 miles. We're not going to make it anymore. Jesus, I need you to get in the boat. Now, here's something you need to know, though. When we talk about language of like Jesus being the captain of the boat, what we assume is what we're saying is that Jesus is our co-captain. He's not your co-captain. He is the captain of the ship. Once you've ever seen that Tom Hanks movie? I am the captain now. When Jesus gets in the boat, he goes, I am the captain. And you want him to be the captain because you're in this moment. You couldn't get through the storm by yourself. So why should you be the captain of your ship? When you go through a storm and you're in a boat, you want the person with the most experience to drive your ship. You want the person who can get you through. You're like, hey, man, you do whatever you want. I just want to make it through. And so they say, Jesus, we need you to get on the ship because we can't. We won't. Only you can. They needed a captain that was capable of getting them through the storm. And it says that they took him, and immediately they were brought to their destination. They were brought to their destination. Now, I could just simply say this, that Jesus is the one who will always get you through the storm. And that's true. But again, I want you to notice this. In Matthew and Mark, when they say that when Jesus gets in the boat, it says that the winds ceased and they were amazed. And they got to where they were going. But John doesn't include that. He doesn't talk about the storm anymore. See, it's as if to say this. Whether or not, see, Jesus, can he stop the storm? Yes. Does Jesus always stop the storm? No, he does not. And he has his reasons for it. But here's what he's saying. Whether Jesus stops the storm or whether he doesn't stop the storm, whether you're dry or whether you're soaking wet, regardless of the storms of your life, this is what John wants you to know. Jesus will always get you through the storm. He'll always get you home. You don't know how. You might feel seasick. You might feel whiplashed. You might feel wet and salty and hate it. But the point isn't that you won't face trouble. The point isn't that you won't get wet. The point is that Jesus will get you through. No matter the intensity of the storm or how dark the night may be, Jesus will get you through. So church, this is what you need to know. You need to learn how to rest in the power and authority of Jesus over your life. You need to see that he has power and authority over all things. You're not the one in control. You're not supposed to be the one in control. He's the one in control. But you see, the moment that you stop giving him the control, you know what you're going to do? You're going to start rowing again. Or maybe you're like Peter and you try to get out of the boat and you start sinking. You're like, every man for himself. We do dumb things when we're terrified. Let me just give you a little psych thing. Your brain, there's a thing called the amygdala. It's kind of like this thing right here. I spent thousands of dollars to learn this, so it's important. And so this is your amygdala. It's the part right here, front part, and it impacts your emotions. And when fear kicks in, it flips up. And the moment it flips up, your logic goes out the window. This is why, like, when people start getting scared, they start running around like chickens with their heads cut off. And this is what we do. We do the exact same things. We do the stupidest things when we're terrified. When we think everything's on us, we think everything's under control, we think, I know the answer. You're like that last guy on the oar. I can do this. I can get us through. No, you can't. Now, the only way for the fear to go down and for things to be equal again is if you're in the presence of someone who makes you safe. And what Jesus is saying to you this morning is this. Will the storms come? Yes. Can I stop the storms? Sure. Will I always? No. Will you be afraid? Probably. Are you safe? Absolutely. Why? Because I can see you through. I can get you home. I can get you wherever I need to get you. And this is the point. What John has been wanting us to see is this, that Jesus is Lord over every storm you face. It's not that he was just the Lord over that one storm in the Sea of Galilee. Every storm, everything that threatens you, everything that seeks to consume you, everything in this life, he is sovereign and he is Lord, meaning he is in control. He sits and resides over it all. And you might be thinking, though, that's not true. That's not true because I've gone through too much. How can I trust God when I've walked through storms of life and it feels impossible? It's because of the gospel of Jesus. You see, do you know why you can trust Jesus in the storm? Because there's only ever been one true storm that you could never get through, and that would truly kill you. It was the storms of sin and death. It was the waters of sin and death. And Jesus went through the storms. Actually, what he did is he let himself be consumed by the storms of sin and death, and he trampled over it, and he was victorious over that. Why? So that any storm you walk through, you can know, if Jesus can get me through sin and death and bring me to life and freedom, then there's no storm in which he cannot get me through. If Jesus truly is the one who is God, who is my Savior, who is my deliverer, and not even the storms of death can take him out, there's no storm that's too big and too great for my God. The cross and the resurrection is how you know that there's no storm that he cannot stop, that Jesus is truly greater. And if that's true, if Jesus is truly greater than your storm, then it means that there is no storm where he will abandon you. He will not. Because what you need to know is not that the storms won't happen or will happen. You need to know that whoever's in the boat with you will get you through. And when you recognize that you don't have to cling to control, you can just trust his guidance. You can trust him in this life. So I ask you today, what storms do you think are too great for God? What storms do you feel are just sinking you? You're just taking in water. You have more water in your lungs than you have oxygen. Where? Where is it? Because what Jesus wants you to know is, I'm bigger than that storm. I'm bigger than whatever seeks to threaten and consume you. I am the great I am. I hold all things together, including you. And I will get you through the storm. So how do we finish this? If you're here this morning and you are a follower of Jesus, here's what I'd invite you to do. You need to start entrusting every area of your life to the control of Jesus Christ. Some of you are holding on to things in your life because you're like, I need control in this because if I don't row and if I don't do it, I won't get through it. And when Jesus says, no, 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 no. You were never meant to have control and you were never meant to hold it together. That is my job. Surrender control of your life in every area to him because he's more than a co-captain. He is God. Jesus is divinity in the flesh, and he can see you through. And if you're here and you're not a believer in Jesus, and maybe this is something you can share with somebody who you know is walking through a storm but doesn't have Jesus. The invitation isn't to admire Jesus as like, oh man, he is the Lord of the storm. That's super cool. I can trust him. No. What you need to know is that you don't need to get control of your life. What you need to know is that Jesus braved the storms of sin and death to come for you as sinners. And that he overcame the storms of sin and death to bring you through to salvation. And because of that, every other storm he can get you through. And so the invitation is not to admire him as Lord, it's to trust him as Savior. And so if you're here and maybe you said, man, I think I've been a Christian, or I'm not making any assumptions, but if you have lived your life and you've called yourself a Christian, but have never actually placed your life and you've put your trust in him, meaning you've surrendered everything to his guidance, then today's the day. Because it's not a matter of if a storm will come. It's a matter of when. The storms of life will come. You might even get a storm on your way out. I don't know. What will you do? Will you row? Will you drown and exhaust yourself? Or will you surrender yourself into the one true Jesus, who is God, who's Lord over the storm, every storm that you face in life that will get you through? It's a very big difference. I just pray, Lord, that our church will be full of passengers on the boat of Christ and that we trust him to get us through anything. Amen. Let's pray.